What does it mean to live a resilient life? I'm Ryan Mannion. I lost my brother to war and my mom to cancer, and I've learned a lot about myself along the way. Now, as the CEO of Travis Mannion Foundation, I'm on a journey to explore what it means to be resilient against life's many challenges. Join me and some incredible guests as we ask ourselves the hard questions and define what it means to struggle well. All right, we are back today with one of my favorites, and I'm going to tell you, Erika, I typically, if you watch my episodes, I'm typically in a oversized sweatshirt, and I felt like I had to dress up a little bit for you today.
Oh my goodness.
She's going to bring it and of course you did. You've got this beautiful sweater on, and I'm like, I can't just wear a hoodie down and, into my basement and talk to Erika Jayne, but I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
It's awesome. And I'm going through Instagram last night, and you have hit Broadway again.
Yes.
Incredible.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's start off a little bit about that, because I remember, watching Beverly Hills when you were getting ready for your debut of Roxy Hart on Broadway, and it was a big moment. I think, I think obviously for you, but for the show as well. It was like, okay, one of the Housewives is going on Broadway. Like, that's a big deal. And unfortunately, the COVID that shut the world down, shut that opportunity down pretty quickly for you. What was that like?
Well, so it was exactly 5 years ago. It was January 2020 that I made my debut on Broadway, and I did end up doing 80 shows. So I was contracted to do January, February, March. So I ended up not completing like 18 shows. So I'm back here now 5 years later, completing that run. It feels great. There is nothing quite like Broadway, and I grew up a musical theater kid, so it's kind of the ultimate dream. And to have it come at like this time in my life, the first time, when I was like 47, and now I'm 53, it's just very sweet. It's a really nice thing to have come around again after so much, I guess, lack of a better word, just drama in my life.
Yeah, and you think about, not only did the world shut down, COVID hit, you went through a transformative time in your life, and
that's putting it very nicely. Yes.
But to come back like full circle in that way, because again, to be on Broadway, like, it's a big deal, and to come back and get that opportunity again. I mean, there had to be a lot of emotions around that.
There are a lot of emotions, and I got a standing ovation Monday night, and I started to cry.
Yeah.
And I realized that, the people that were there, it was standing room only, they were there because they had watched my story, and they'd watched me come back, and they'd watched me, fight my way through my personal problems and end up back where I started on the stage. And that was a very special moment for me, because it was a genuine exchange. They were genuinely happy for me, and that doesn't happen a lot. You don't see that a lot, and so to feel that from a group of basically strangers was important, and it really touched my heart, and I'm very grateful to everyone that came out.
Yeah, and I think we can be caught up in this world where people are almost rooting for other people's failure, right?
I think they enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think that people enjoy building people that, up, and then watching them fall. Mm-hmm. And then, luckily I got a little bit of people watching me, succeed.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about the California wildfires. And obviously I'm on the East Coast. You're on the East Coast right now with me, but watching it, and one of the things there were two things that stuck out to me. First, kind of this like dichotomy of watching what was going on, and then seeing the images of just a mile or 2 miles down the road of life just being lived, right? And I couldn't imagine, you know, Philadelphia is my home city, like watching this kind of devastation unfold. What was going through your head? Like walk me through like the emotions of when you started to see like this is a real tragedy that is unfolding.
Fortunately for me, I'm in Hancock Park, so I'm away from the West Side, but I know so many people who've lost everything, and to hear the devastation in their voice and not knowing what to do. I mean, it is truly, it looks like, for lack of a better word, like a war zone over there. I mean, there's nothing there. It's rubble. And these people, they've lost their homes, they've lost their churches, their synagogues, the kids have lost schools, friends. Like, it is absolutely insane. I felt helpless and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And what do you do? I mean, it was just devastating. And I have friends, right when it happened, they're like, it's okay. And you can tell that that's a little bit of shock. And I'm sure it will be okay, but it's going to take time to be okay.
You know, I had this conversation with my girlfriend, and it was like, well, if your house was, you know, you got the call, like you need to evacuate, what are you taking with you? And I had to stop for a second and say, like, what would I take? Like, what are the most important things to me?
And what did you come up with? What were your answers?
Well, for me, it was anything that was like belonged to my mom or my brother, because I lost both of them. So it was like anything that was theirs. I don't care about anything that's mine, but anything that was theirs. Obviously pictures, because a lot of my childhood memories are, you know, in printed pictures.
Not digitized.
Not digitized. So stuff like that, anything that belonged to my brother, his awards, his medals, stuff that I knew that couldn't be replaced.
Things that are over your shoulder.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I'd probably end up in the podcast studio and grab everything on these shelves. But, you know, you start to realize like all these things that are just so unimportant, right? The things that are just so unimportant that take up space in our lives. Because when it comes down to it, there was just a few things that at the end of the day, I would be devastated that I didn't have, you know, if my house was gone.
I think I'm so sorry. I'm in New York City and like whatever's happening here.
That's okay.
But you're right. You know, I think you pick those things that are obviously the most important that you could never replace, whether it's, you know, your personal effects or from your family, your brother. For me, I mean, you know, I've left so much already, like a few years ago, that now what I would have to take with me would really seriously probably be about this much. Like, there's not that much left.
Well, you kind of had to do that, right?
I did.
You did.
I mean, I did. I left a home and a life and lots of really pretty things that ultimately are just that, things. And I took what was most important, which was my dog, my childhood memories, things that I needed, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a friend. So on January 10th, we had a big event happening in Annapolis, and one of our friends was coming out from LA. He got on a plane, no evacuation orders in place. Got on a plane, flew to JFK. By the time he got landed in JFK, his house was gone. And
I have friends that happened. That, you know, a friend of ours, well, our new cast member Bose, she was in Zambia and watched her house burn down on Twitter.
Yeah. And it was just wild because, you know, we got the call and he's like, I'm at JFK, but I'm catching the next flight. My house is gone. And it was like, oh my gosh, like that quickly.
Yes.
And so watching that all unfold, one of the things like, I thought about you when watching the first responders, and gosh, anytime this happens, and the Los Angeles Fire Department, they're just incredible.
They really are.
They really are. And, you know, I thought a lot about you being the mom of a first responder, and, you know, your son was probably in the thick of it and everything happening. And, you know, there's just so many emotions, and I'm sure you were feeling them, with this idea that like you had your child that is responding to these things, is helping those that are losing everything.
Yeah, you know, my son's a police officer at LAPD, and the first thing he said was, I need to go there. Like he was asking to go. Like
Yeah.
and obviously they were all on tactical alert. And so any officer at any time could be deployed. Um, and he called me, after his shift, and he was like, I can't, and we used to spend time out in Malibu. We had a home in Malibu many years ago, and I think it probably burned around. But he said to me, I don't recognize where I'm at, Mom. Like, this is really bad. And these people, like, they have nothing. And it's just, emotions are high, and it's everything is on fire, and it's a lot. And being the mom of a first responder, look, your children, they are their own human beings. They have their own path. And I'm very proud of him. And at the same time, I'm like, please wear your mask and please do not do anything crazy. Please come home. Just do what you need to do and be safe.
Well, I will admit something. One of my favorite pastimes is when a new season comes out, I don't watch it while it's happening. So Beverly Hills came out and I'm like, all right, Beverly Hills is coming out with a new season. So I will go and rewatch the entire franchise. And then,
oh, wow.
So I'm like kind of caught up. I'm feeling it. So I am right now in season 8 of Beverly Hills. And it was interesting because I think might have been the season before, but I was watching just in the last couple of weeks, the exchange. I think you guys you're either in Hong Kong or Tokyo. I don't know. You were doing a lot
I flipped out on Eileen.
When you flipped out on Eileen. And there was
Who
a lot
did
of
not deserve that at all.
Totally. But I understood, I think it was hard for them. They were like, wait, I don't get it. But I felt you in that moment. And I was like, and I saw my mom in that moment and I knew it was misplaced anger towards Eileen, and you didn't, but
yeah,
I saw it.
Fear and anger, to be honest.
Totally. Yeah. But it reminded me of my mom because it was like, don't mess with my baby. Like, you have no idea what they go out and do every day,
Well, when your baby's out there, seeing the worst in humanity every day and putting themselves in danger, and I took it the wrong way, and it really wasn't, it had nothing to do with her.
Sure.
And I totally overreacted. But you know what did happen after that was I got so many DMs from people, first responder families, who were like, I totally understand.
Yeah.
Just like you said, I totally understand. It's okay. Like, and I have to remember that, it's a community that only we kind of get it.
Well, that's what I felt. I was like, I get it. I know exactly why she reacted in that way. I understand Eileen didn't do anything wrong, but I totally got it. When my brother was killed, there was a business in our local town right outside of Philadelphia, and it was at the height of the Iraq War, and they had a sign on their door, and it was lives lost. And so anytime a service member was killed in Iraq or Afghanistan, they would change the number. And
oh my God.
I think they meant it as a show of like support almost.
Probably.
And I would drive by and I'd see that number change on the daily. And I remember when I drove by, it was like 2 days after my brother's funeral, and I saw that the number had changed. And I stopped my car. I went in. There was a young woman there who totally innocent, and I lost my shit on her. And I said, my brother's not a fucking number. Take this down. And she was like, I'm sorry, that's not how we mean it. But I lost it on her. And
that's right.
Yeah, and in that moment, I'm like, you don't get it. Like, he's not a number.
This is a person.
Yeah.
This is a human being. That was my brother.
Yeah.
He's not a number. My family's going through it. And I'm sure they had the best of intentions, but when it hits that place, it's like, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It becomes overwhelming. And your grief and your pain, it's just, it's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole other thing.
Yeah. And I went from, my dad, I was raised as a military child. My dad's a retired colonel in the Marine Corps, lost my brother. And now my daughter has decided to follow in that same path. And she's at the Naval Academy. So she will end up serving in the military as well. She's already taken her oath. So now everything is heightened for me because now I'm the mom, you know?
So okay, I have a question, and maybe this isn't proper, but different because she's a girl than if you had a boy,
I think a little bit. Yeah. I mean,
right?
I have a 10-year-old son, and if he said, Mom, I want to be a Marine, I'd be like, let's go, kid, you know, my little guy. But like my beautiful 18-year-old daughter, yeah, it does hit a little differently for sure.
Well, that is, well, God bless her. I mean, she's, wow, that's a big deal
Yeah. Yeah.
to be at Naval Academy.
Yeah. It's, but I'm sure you feel it with your son. Like there's just such a sense of pride. And I say it to her all the time. I'm like, I'm in awe of you because I don't think I would ever make the decisions you made. Like I'm in awe of the fact that you have devoted your life to service.
I could not do it. But I am very proud of those who do. And when does your daughter graduate?
So she's a freshman. So she's in her first year. She's got she's got a little bit of time. But she does all the things. Like this summer she's gone doing military training, Does she love it? It's very hard. The first year at a service academy is super hard. So she's getting through it. Yeah. She's getting through it. She believes she made the right decision. Does she love it? I don't know if love's the right word at this time.
How many women are there?
This was actually the largest class. It was 30% of the incoming class was female. Largest female class ever in the history of the Naval Academy. Yeah. So it's pretty cool that she was a part of that. So, but I felt like that kind of kindred bond with you when you first joined the franchise, and first hearing your son was a police officer. I was like, I love this. So
yeah, it was. Thank you. And it's your child, and you're always going to be worried about them, and it's just one of those things. And every night, my son's in a busy part of town, like he works, in a busy place. And just hearing story after story, it's like, oh gosh. And there's really nothing quite like turning on the news and seeing your child like at a scene. You're like, oh no. But yeah.
It's pretty cool. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit. I wrote a book in 2019 called The Knock at the Door. I wrote the book, to share what happened when I received a literal knock at the door to tell me that my brother had been killed in Iraq. And, but I wrote it for a bigger purpose. And the idea was that each and every one of us are going to be faced with a knock at the door, either literally or figuratively. And,
yes, we are.
And you got a knock at the door.
Which time?
Well, you got a big knock at the door with everything, that happened with your, is he your ex-husband now?
We're separated.
Okay.
Now.
So, and, just in the past year, I went through something where I was betrayed, we'll put it that way, by somebody that I thought I knew. And they turned out to be somebody that I didn't know. And obviously that's, I would imagine that's kind of what you dealt with, and that's what you were feeling in that moment.
Yeah, I have felt betrayed. I felt, I often ask my therapist what was true about the 20 plus years that I lived with my husband. The psychological effects of something like that are very tough. I began to question myself, like, who am I in all of this? And the knock at the door, like I actually had a knock at the door with the public defender asking me if I could help in his defense or something like that. And it's just, I don't know how you feel, but I know that I have to persevere, like that's my job. I can't stay down too long, but I don't know that I'll ever trust like that again or be in a relationship like that again. I don't know how you feel, but certainly that's how I feel.
I said that recently to someone. I said, I don't feel like I'll ever be able to fully trust again. And my friend said to me, like, you can't live that way. Like you can't live going forward letting that moment define like how you trust other people, but it's hard. And I'm in a place right now where, you know, I'm still in kind of my anger phase, which is hard because it's not healthy for me.
No, but you can't rush that either. It's one thing I learned in therapy. I kept asking my therapist, like, when does all of this move along? Like, I really don't have time to sit here. I have a life to rebuild. Like, I need to get on, and I don't have time for this grief. I don't have time for this anger. And she literally said to me, this is not a linear thing. There is no timeline. And I'm sorry, you're just going to have to stick it out like that.
Yeah.
And that is the hardest thing to hear.
It's so hard because right now I just want to release it, right? I just want to release it from my life.
You want to move on.
Yeah. And I feel like kind of stuck in this place where I can't let go of the anger. And I'm like, oh, and I feel like it's like infecting the inside of my body, right? Where I'm like, it makes you sick, you know?
It does, but that's also the fact that you recognize that and the fact that you're willing to sit with it and look at it. These are the things you're going to have to go through to ultimately get to the other side. It has taken me 4.5 years to be able to not think about my husband every day.
Yeah.
And to be able to, like tonight, to go on stage tonight and not be wondering what's going on with him. Yeah. Or what's happening. Like, it has taken me so long to basically discipline my mind to say, no, Erika, we're going to focus on here, right now, not what you cannot control, you know, things that are beyond my control. I need to, my assistant's dog, I need to be able to, like, I can't control him either, but to be able to live my life and remain present.
One of the things too, though, that like you went through this in such a public matter. And I could not even begin to imagine what that was like. And your knock came with a lot of public scrutiny.
Yes.
And I saw an article where you said you had to learn to love yourself when you felt like the whole world was hating you.
That's right.
And I thought that was so powerful.
Well, I had to remember who I am at my core, not who everybody was trying to make me out to be. This was my life. I lived this, not everyone else weighing in from the outside in. I lived it from the inside out. I know what happened to me.
Yeah.
And I cannot allow voices from the outside, no matter how big or how loud or, you know, how many of them, tell me what happened to me and who I am and what I experienced. I wasn't going to allow that. And I wasn't going to allow a television show or, you know, articles and things they were not there. I was there. This is my life you're talking about. I know what happened. I know who I am. And I just wasn't going to give that up for anything.
How did it feel, though, to have some of your castmates who were, I believe, were real true friends, right, outside of the show, kind of doubt you in the beginning?
It was terrible.
Yeah.
And I think that it was not popular to support me. It was not popular to wait and see. So I watched a lot of people who maybe under different circumstances wouldn't have rushed to judgment, but because they had a job to do, they did.
Yeah. And
that hurts. And I don't really, you know, I can understand. I can forgive it. I will not forget it. I will never, and I work not to be like that. It taught me to, even if something is unpopular, if I feel a certain way about it, I'm going to say, I disagree. You know, I see it this way. And so there are a lot of valuable lessons to be learned in being in a place where you feel totally alone and totally misunderstood. It's really what I'm trying to say. You know, I just felt completely misunderstood. And it worked out for a lot of people. They were able to really capitalize on me being misunderstood. And I didn't help by maybe drinking too much and taking antidepressants and screaming and wanting to fight but that's who I am. You know, I wanted to like beat the shit out of everybody around me because they wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I think when you kind of came out of that place, though, when you recognized that maybe you had some like self-destructive habits that were over, you know, you started to see a shift where you started to kind of handle it with a lot more grace.
Well, I think, and I don't know if this happened to you through your loss as well, but I didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to live. I didn't want to wake up every day and, be facing all of these things that were beyond my control and all of this scrutiny. And I felt, again, just like I wasn't being heard. And I didn't like that. So I just started to medicate myself.
Yeah.
And so I could feel nothing. I didn't want to feel anything. And when I got over that, and it took me a while, like a year, I think, of just, basically, fuck it, I'll do whatever I want. And then I realized, you know what, Erika, that's not really who you are.
Yeah.
That's not really who you are at your core. So let's calm down and I have to stop being angry too. And that was really a big part of it.
Yeah. Well, I just think, for me, it's selfish in a way where I just want everything to go away because I know that holding on to anger can make you sick. And
it will.
Yeah. And, and that's why I think I'm trying to like rush the process. It's like, I want to rush this through because I want to take care of myself, but you can't. You have to sit in it.
You have to sit in it. It won't, if you don't, it will come back.
Yeah.
If you sweep it under the rug, it's going to come back. It'll seep out in other ways of your life and you will get sick.
Yeah.
So, and I think that, you're also, no, I kind of disagree with your friend. You saying like, you can't go through life not trusting. You can go through life being very, you can scrutinize people. That's okay.
Yeah.
You can protect yourself. You don't have to be fully open. You've earned the right to protect yourself.
So we have a lot of similarities in just the way, again, you kind of protect your feelings. I am very, so, I'll go out and I'll stand in front of a room of 10,000 people and I'll share the story of the hardest, worst day of my life, losing my brother. And I can do that very easily. But what I have a lot of trouble doing is having one-on-one interactions where I really open up to a person and I'm super vulnerable with them. Like that's massively uncomfortable for me. I hate crying in front of people. It makes me feel weak. And so, I've watched you throughout the seasons and every time I'm like, oh my gosh, we are so much alike in that respect. And people take it as, a lot of times, watching you, people have taken it as, you're cold.
You're ice cold. You have no emotions. The truth is I'm so very sensitive inside.
Yeah.
I am so sensitive. And I have to almost throw up the wall. Now I'm better. But, I was really just holding up the walls of my life. And for me to be really vulnerable with someone took a lot of courage for me. I just don't have it like that. And I understand when people, reach out to me and they say, hey, I feel the same way. It's just, I'm very sensitive inside. I'm a hurt kid and I want it to stop. I hated feeling powerless and weak as a child. And so I do everything I can not to feel that way. And it comes across as being a bitch or being cold or not having empathy or sympathy or any of that. It's actually quite the opposite.
Yeah.
I'm really just trying to hold it all together.
I am same person, like literally the same. I've been called cold and it's like a big joke. Oh, you're cold. You don't like to give, it's a running joke with my teammates. Like, whoa, don't hug Ryan. She doesn't like to be hugged. She doesn't like to be, and it's just, again, it's like if you come in that moment where I'm feeling vulnerable and you give me that hug, I know it's going to elicit tears coming out of my face and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to push you away and you're going to think I'm a cold bitch, but really it's just like, I don't want to
break down in front of everybody and get embarrassed.
Totally. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm trying very hard to be stoic and keep it all in.
Yes.
The truth is, I'm just this baby inside that's just going to cry all over you at any minute.
Well, it's so funny because when people talk about, like, people say it in front of my daughter, Maggie, my oldest, and, you know, if somebody says, "Oh, your mom doesn't cry," and she's like, "What are you talking about? She cries all the time." Because
all the time.
in front of
she's
her,
not gonna let you see it.
Yeah,
right.
she sees the real me. She's like, "Mom cries all the time. What are you talking about?" So
you're probably like a super cuddly mom that gives all kinds of hugs and
totally,
you know, all that kind of stuff. But listen, to the outward facing world, you have a public facing persona, and you know, you can't always show that.
yeah, yeah. One of the things too that I thought was interesting, you know, as you watch, and again, I'm on again season 8, rewatching everything, and I don't pay attention to anything. I don't want to know. Obviously, you can't be on social media and not know some of the stuff that's going on in the current season.
Sure.
But one of the things that I think is really interesting about the Real Housewives franchise, and most especially Beverly Hills, I've seen it most in Beverly Hills, is that sometimes real friendships can like get in the way of the storyline. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. I don't want anybody to feel bad, you know, or to feel hurt, or to feel like they can't, you know, we are opening up our lives. It is true. What happened to me is very true. And I just don't like, even though some of the women are going through, you know, similar things that I'm going through, not legally, but personally, I don't want them to be hurt. You know, I don't want them to feel what I felt, you know, these last few years, because it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And does it get in the way of the entertainment of it all? Yeah, sometimes, because I can't watch my friend get hurt like that.
Yeah.
You know, it upsets me.
Yeah. It's obvious that there are real friendships, and then there are people who are on a cast together, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But do you feel I have to imagine you feel a certain bond with all the cast members, even the ones you don't have like authentic
Super
friendship.
close.
Yeah.
Well, I have an authentic relationship with everyone. It's just, you know, the thing is about the experience of Housewives is that, you know, much like I would imagine people who are in another workforce, you have different relationships with each person. I have different relationships with each woman, and I may bond with one of them on family, the other one on, you know, career, the other one on, I don't know, health and wellness, whatever, mental health. Yes, but there are those that you are closer to, and that's okay. You know who, but we do have this unique experience of being on a reality TV show where we do share our lives. And unless you've done the show, you don't really know what it is, because it looks one way, but it's a completely different experience.
Totally. So what was your favorite cast of all the different seasons? Is there like one season or cast that you're like, that was my crew?
I like where we are now. Look, I miss Lisa Rinna, of course. I think that was a great, you know, time. She was a big part of making the show really powerful and strong. I miss her. Yeah, that's where I would say I missed her. I thought that, you know, I have a podcast with Teddy. I thought she was a good little housewife. You know, she was not afraid to, you know, speak her mind. But, you know, ultimately, we don't get to decide.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So, okay. So I want to talk about Lisa and Teddy real quick, because again, right in where I am currently in season 8 is like right when you and Teddy are super clashing. Every time you talk to her, she cries. Like she is just you are so misunderstood by her. And it's very interesting, and like anything you say to her just feels like it looks like she's getting stabbed, you know, tears come to her eyes. And then you guys are now, but doing a podcast together. Obviously it seems like you guys are super tight. What do you think it was in the beginning that you guys weren't finding kind of that common ground?
I think Teddy was in a place that she's now, you know, she's come out on her personal life. She was going through things that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
And now and now that she's on her own or she's separated or filed for divorce, um, you can kind of see all of that. You know, joining a show like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills is stressful. Your marriage is on display. Your personality is up for criticism. Like everything, you're offering that up, you know, to the public, and it's something you signed up to do. And I think now having a little bit of, you know, knowledge about the background, it was a very trying time for her. So I think that that's why you see her that way. And she's grown up a lot. I mean, you know, she's grown and she's she's going through some tough stuff.
Yeah. And then Lisa Rinna. So obviously she
probably the truest of all truths. I mean, if I called up Lisa Rinna and I said, "Hey, I have a problem and I need your help," okay, and it's true. Wow. Like, okay, what do you need me to do? That's who she is.
I appreciate that, because I'll tell you my impression of, and again, it might just be where I am right now, and I've watched her in later seasons, but there were some things that when watching it almost seemed like she was trying to create a lot of chaos.
Well, Lisa will ask questions. Lisa Rinna would ask questions, and the questions that sometimes have to be asked, the uncomfortable parts that, you know, of conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when you watch it from the outside, though. When you watch,
oh yes,
you know, and
yes.
you create these ideas in your head of who these characters are. Obviously, you guys are real people, but you know, I almost think sometimes Lisa played into the role of who she was.
Well, Lisa is a performer.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
She's a performer. Yeah. She knows what she's doing. Also, someone like us, very sensitive inside. Very sensitive, very sweet, very giving.
That was the interesting part, because I was watching the reunion where Kim gives the teddy bear back.
It bothered her.
Yeah, and I couldn't decide. I'm like, are these, because Kim's going, those aren't real tears, they're crocodile tears, and I'm like, is this real, or is she just looking to get that kind of sympathy card? But
well, you know, the beauty about what you're watching is that in some eyes it's you know, and it's not true. In other eyes it is. And, you know, obviously I get to sit there and watch it. So I have a whole different perspective.
Yeah, totally. What is your favorite franchise that isn't Beverly Hills?
I don't watch.
You don't? That's so... Do you watch your seasons?
Hold on. I have to, just because we do
the blogs and stuff.
And also, too, you have to remember that we only see what we shoot. I don't get to see, you know, other people's sit down moments or things that they shoot without me. So conversations that someone's had, I'm not getting right there. I think that I did watch Orange County because I stepped in for Teddy with the podcast. And it was nice because I watched it with, you know, I felt almost like fresh eyes in a way.
Yeah.
And I watched it as a viewer and I found it wildly entertaining. Oh. And it was nice to go talk to her about it and say, hey, you know, and look, I have obviously been a cast member for 9 years, so, you know, almost 10 years. So I know what's happening, but it was also nice to watch it from a distance and be like, huh.
Well,
I like that.
It's funny because, you know, I work in a serious industry, right? I'm working with veterans every day. I'm working with families of fallen service members. You know, I'm talking about mental health and suicide.
Real things.
Yeah. And so, you know, for me, I find true levity in being able to come home and like, I'm not putting the news on. Like, I need to unwind and decompress. And I'll tell you, nothing brings me more joy than being like, I'm just putting on some Real Housewives. And what
can I tell you though? I hear this quite a bit. You are not alone.
Yeah.
And like, you know, we're playing in the background of everyone's home.
Yeah.
And it's and we know that. Yeah. We know that we are entertaining. We know that our lives are entertaining and that we are offering, just like you said, some levity to some very heavy situations.
Yeah.
And if that's what I do, and that's what I give. Thank God.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here to entertain and bring a smile to your face through like stupid things like Merces in the purse or whatever. I mean, you know, things like that. Like it's silly stuff. I mean,
But there's
it's
real
serious
shit
stuff,
that you're
but then a
dealing
lot
with
of it
too.
is very silly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It was funny because it used to be like my dirty little secret where I was like, I watch Real Housewives. Like,
Oh,
but
everybody watches Real Housewives.
Yeah. And it was funny because I had Leah on from New York a little while ago. And and you know, and I brought her on to talk about addiction, you know, and I was like, this is like, we can have real conversation about addiction. I see it every day within the community in which I serve. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna talk about Real Housewives at all. Like, I'm not gonna go there. I don't want to. And it took me all of 2 seconds. I'm like, all right, listen, I'm a junkie. I've seen every episode. Like,
but that's the thing is that, you know, everyone watches it. Listen, the almighty Meryl Streep watches.
There you
Housewives.
go. There you go.
Barack, you know, the presidents, whichever presidents they are, watch Housewives. You know, so like it's cool.
Yeah, I love it.
It's pure entertainment.
So let's talk a little bit about season 14 again. I haven't watched it yet, but I have seen, like, you're definitely playing the kind of the middleman, it seems, between Kyle and Dorit.
Yeah, I'm stuck in between two women that I know and that I care about, and they're going through the worst time in their lives. They're getting separated and they're fighting, and I'm in the middle trying to navigate my way around without being a good friend and not, you know, getting caught in the crossfire. But, you know, it's at some point I do.
So what do you do, and where, you know, turning off of the franchise for a minute, like, what do you do to turn to, like, what do you turn to when you're in a bad place? When you were going through that period, what was your release? Was it, you know, an activity? Was it a certain person? Was it therapy? Like, what were the methods that you used to help you?
I threw everything at what I was going through. So I was, you know, treated by a psychiatrist. I was in therapy every week, my psychologist. Fortunately for me, I did not stop performing. So I was singing, I was dancing. I just tried to find joy in everything that was not legal husband related.
Yeah.
And it was not easy because the paparazzi was like pretty consistently outside my home. I would drive by billboards and see my face of, like, you know, like other documentaries and things like that. It was article after article. It was bad. It was really bad. But I had to also remember there were a lot of people that reached out to me that had gone through things like this. And it really is baby steps.
Yeah.
You know, it really is one moment at a time. I remember my therapist saying to me, okay, I want you to get from 9 a.m. to noon. I was like, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. She's like, literally, we're going to go like hour by hour. You're just going to, I want your goal is to get from 9 a.m. to noon.
Yeah.
And I thought, is it really that bad? She's like, yeah, it really is.
I mean,
and I was also allowed, I don't know if you did this or not, but I was allowed to take out my problems, like visually take out my problems and kind of like go through them and then put them in a mental box and put them on a shelf and then get back to, you know, living.
Yeah.
Because you can't become totally consumed.
Well, I know, you know, when I lost my brother, and, you know, I deal and am so close with a lot of people who have lost, you know, siblings, spouses. My girlfriend Heather, when she lost her husband in Afghanistan, you know, her therapist was like, every day you just have to do one thing. So it was like, I need to go to the bank today, and she would go to the bank and it would take 1 hour and then she'd get back into bed. But that was a successful day. It was like, okay, I did that. I took that 1 hour and I went to the bank, and now I can get back into bed. And then it had to progress, right? And it was like, okay, tomorrow you have to do 2 things, you know?
Yeah, you can go to the bank and maybe do a load of laundry.
Right. Yeah. And you have to look at it from that perspective. There was a clip where Andy asked you, which housewife has changed the most since she started filming? And you actually said yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you look at how I entered the show, where I entered it in the part of my life my marriage, where I lived, and all of these pretty things that I had, and you look at what happened and what I've gone through, and I'm completely and totally on my own. Um, I have far fewer things, material things, but I have the one thing that none of that brought me, which was freedom, true freedom, and a true sense of self. And I had to go through all of that to really find out who I was. I've gone through menopause on the show and talked about it. I've lost my husband, lost my home. I mean, all of these things. The dog died.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
it's a lot of big things. Yeah.
I'm just buried in legal shit and everything. So I really sort of shed an entire human being and an entire life. And I'm over here now. I really let go. Like I really did. I mean, my son and I have never been, well, we haven't been this close since he was like tiny little thing. He was just here in New York to see the show, which I was so grateful for. And so that relationship has gotten stronger. My friends, Mikey and Laya, who have been with me, like we're still tight. And, maybe I'll get a new dog. Maybe I'll start dating somebody cool. I don't know. I live in this cute little home, but it's all mine. And I'm on my own. And I'm just out here making it happen. And I feel good like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. And
Thank you.
that's, I mean, I always say, like, when I wrote the book, I'm like, don't wait for that knock to be the best version of yourself, to find that new, that light, right? Because I think a lot of times, for me, I say, like, I am a completely different person than I was before my brother was killed. I was kind of apathetically coasting through life. I didn't really care too much about anything, I mean, except for the fact that my brother was my hero. Like, even before he was, like, my brother, I was always in awe of him. And so after he was killed, it was like I felt this need and almost this responsibility where I'm like, I have to be more. Like I have to be more for him. And and I don't know that if he was still here, like would I still kind of be that person I was? And it's a little bit.
I understand that, because had I still lived this very comfortable, very, life, I don't know that I would have. I mean, I'm going to tell you something. I know who I am at my core. Like I am one tough little resilient motherfucker. Like you are not running me out of town. I am not quitting. I am not, I may, to have to take a knee and gather myself, but I'm not going to let anybody defeat, me or tear me down to where I cannot recover, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know that would have happened if I would have known myself like that, had I been staying in a very comfortable place in my life.
It's kind of hard when you think about the fact that you sometimes have to go through the hardest things that you've ever experienced to kind of find.
Just to reveal who you really are, your true strength.
Yeah.
But you also touched on something else. I also can't wait for another knock at the door. I only have a certain amount of time. And I'm sure that you probably have thought about this as well. Every day, I have to do something.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to have a good time here. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to surround myself with people that are interesting, that uplift me. I'm going to do things that I think are important. I want to be good to people. I want to inspire people. I'm so grateful for the people that are coming to the shows, like even tonight. Like that's where I'm living, is in the present moment. All of that other stuff, it's over.
Yeah.
And I have to do something today.
I love that.
Thank you.
So you said you're a resilient motherfucker. I've never had anyone say it like that before, but I'm love
sorry.
that. No, I love it. But when I talk to people about resilience, like one of the big questions that I always ask everyone is like, how do you lead that resilient life? Like, what does living a resilient life look like for you? When you wake up every day, what are the decisions that you make?
Just honestly, this is going to sound so crazy, but what runs through my head is do not stop.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. Do not stop. I have this internal sense of urgency, like it just lives within me, and I have to get things done. I think there is, whether it's good or bad, this sort of feeling of I must keep moving forward. If I stop moving forward, bad things are going to happen. So I'll move forward in my mental health journey. I'll move forward in like my physical health. I'll move forward in whatever creative product I have. And that's how I do that. It's just, I cannot stop motion.
Love it. So how long does Chicago run for, or how long are you playing Roxy Hart in Chicago?
I'm here for 3 weeks till February 11th.
Okay. And what's next after that?
Well, I got to go home and shoot the reunion.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, that's a great day. And then after that, I got to make some music and I've got to prepare for some shows and we'll see what's next. Who knows?
I love it. Erika,
thank you.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I wish you all the best in all the next things to come for you, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of them.
Thank you. And you know what? If you want to come to the show, let me know.
Okay, I will do that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.